The storm rolled in just as the last bus left the station. A young mother named Lila stood beneath the flickering streetlight, clutching her little daughter Maya close to her chest. The child's small pink jacket was soaked through, her curls plastered against her forehead, and her lips trembled from the cold. Lila wrapped her arms tighter around her, her own hands numb, her heart breaking. Behind them, the old building that used to be their home was now dark and locked, a red notice nailed to the door, evicted. She had nowhere to go. Not a single friend left to call. Her parents were gone, her sister lived across the country, and her paycheck from the diner barely kept food on the table, until she lost that job last week too. It had all crumbled so fast. As thunder cracked across the sky, Lila hurried to the nearest cafe that still had its lights on. The warm glow through the glass felt like hope, even if it was faint. Inside, people laughed softly over steaming cups of coffee. She hesitated at the door, afraid of being asked to leave because of her soaked clothes and shivering child. But Maya looked up, whispering, "Mommy, can we go in? Please?" That was enough. Lila pushed the door open. The warmth hit them immediately, and she sighed in relief. They found a small corner table. Lila counted the few coins in her pocket, barely enough for one cup of coffee. She ordered it, just to have a reason to stay. Maya curled up beside her, head on her mother's lap, exhausted. The waitress, a kind woman named Rose, noticed them and brought over a small muffin. "It's on the house," she whispered with a smile. Lila's eyes filled with tears as she whispered back, "Thank you." At another table sat Ethan, a well-dressed man in his 30s, typing on a laptop. He was the kind of man who looked like he had everything: confidence, success, peace. But beneath his calm exterior was a storm of his own. His company had grown beyond his control, and his fiancée had left him 2 months ago after accusing him of caring more about money than people. He'd started coming to this cafe at night just to think, to remember what it felt like to be human again. When Lila and Maya came in, his eyes lifted from the screen. Something about them caught his attention. Maybe it was the mother's trembling hands or the child's quiet innocence. He watched as the mother tried to hide her tears, stroking her daughter's hair and whispering that everything would be okay, even though she clearly didn't believe it herself. He tried to focus back on his laptop, but the sight burned into his mind. Minutes passed. The coffee on her table had gone cold. Maya was now asleep. Lila stared out the window, watching the rain pour down harder. Then she whispered to herself, her voice breaking, "We have nowhere to go." Ethan heard it. His chest tightened. He looked at the waitress, who shrugged sympathetically. Something inside him, something that had been buried under years of board meetings, profits, and sterile luxury, stirred again. Without thinking, he stood and walked toward her table. "Excuse me," he said softly. Lila startled, wiping her tears quickly. "I'm sorry," she said, embarrassed. "We'll leave soon." "No," he replied gently, "please don't." He pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Are you okay?" Her lips trembled. "We're fine," she lied. "Just waiting for the rain to stop." He looked down at the sleeping child, then back at her tired face. "How long have you been out there?" She looked away. "Since this afternoon." He didn't push. Instead, he quietly called for the waitress. "Can we get some soup and something warm for the little one?" Lila's eyes widened. "You don't have to do that." "I know," he said softly. "But I want to." When the food arrived, Lila tried to protest, but the smell alone made her realize how hungry she and Maya were. She finally gave in, whispering a quiet thank you. As they ate, Ethan listened. She told him bits and pieces, how she lost her job, how she'd been staying in a rented room, how the landlord locked her out when she couldn't pay rent. She spoke softly, ashamed, as if every word was a confession. Ethan didn't interrupt. He just listened. After an hour, the cafe began to close. Rose walked over, her voice kind but hesitant. "I'm sorry, dear. We're closing soon." Lila nodded, trying to wake Maya. But the child wouldn't stir, she was too tired, too warm after the long cold day. Lila bit her lip. "It's okay. We'll find somewhere." Ethan stood abruptly. "No," he said. "You're not going back out there tonight." She blinked. "What?" "I'll get you a hotel," he said simply. Her eyes filled with panic. "No, I can't accept that. You don't even know us." He smiled faintly. "I know you're a mother trying to protect her daughter. That's enough." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan hesitated. "Because someone once helped me when I was lost. Maybe it's my turn." He paid the bill, offered his coat, and guided them to his car. Lila hesitated before getting in, but the cold wind made her decision for her. She whispered, "Thank you," and sat down, holding Maya close as the car's warmth surrounded them. They drove through the rain in silence. Eventually, they reached a small boutique hotel. Ethan spoke to the manager quietly, arranged everything, and handed Lila a key card. "You'll be safe here tonight," he said. Her voice shook. "I don't know how to thank you." He smiled. "You just did." As he turned to leave, Maya stirred, waking up. "Mommy, who's that?" she murmured sleepily. Lila smiled faintly. "Someone kind, sweetheart." Ethan waved softly and walked away into the rain. That night, as Lila tucked Maya into a warm bed for the first time in days, she looked out the window and whispered, "Thank you, whoever you are." What she didn't know was that Ethan sat in his car a few blocks away, unable to shake the feeling that something inside him had just changed forever. The morning light streamed through the hotel window like a quiet promise. For the first time in months, Lila didn't wake up in panic. Her daughter Maya was still asleep, her tiny hand clutching the blanket, her face peaceful. Lila smiled weakly. The last thing she remembered was falling asleep whispering a thank you to the stranger who'd saved them from the cold. Downstairs, the hotel manager greeted her with a kind smile. "Good morning, Mississippi. Mr. Walker left early but asked me to remind you that your stay is covered for the entire week. Meals too." Lila froze. "A week? He paid for all that?" The man nodded. "Said to make sure you both feel safe." Her eyes filled instantly. No one had said those words to her in years, "You're safe." That day, she promised herself she wouldn't waste the kindness she'd been shown. She dropped Maya at a local daycare that offered free trials and began walking door to door, asking for work. Cafe, bookstore, design studio, anywhere that would take her. Some said no. A few said maybe. But she kept going. Each night, she'd return to the hotel tired but grateful. Maya would greet her with drawings she made that day, little houses, smiling suns, and a stick figure family. In every drawing, there was always a man beside the mother and child. Lila didn't have to ask who he was. 3 days later, fate brought him back. Lila walked past the cafe where it all began, the place where the rain had mixed with her tears, and there he was, Ethan, sitting by the window, typing away on his laptop. She hesitated, heart pounding. Then, smiling nervously, she said, "You again." He looked up, startled, then smiled. "Lila." He stood and gestured to the seat across from him. "Please, join me." As they talked, it felt as if time dissolved. She told him about her job search, the daycare, the small signs of progress. He listened, really listened, not with pity, but respect. When she asked why he helped her, he simply said, "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing. My mother. She raised me alone. You reminded me of her." Her eyes softened. "She must have been a good woman." "She was," he said quietly. "And so are you." From that day, Ethan became part of their little world, at first, by coincidence, then by choice. He'd meet them for coffee, walk Maya to the park, sometimes bring her crayons or a muffin. His calm presence felt like the sunlight after a storm, steady, gentle, healing. Lila's heart, once closed to everything, began to open again. Weeks passed. Lila finally landed a job at a small design studio. The pay was modest, but her boss noticed her creativity. She started sketching again, something she hadn't done since before life broke her spirit. One evening, Ethan dropped by to celebrate. He brought dinner, pizza for Maya, coffee for Lila. They ate together in her tiny hotel room, laughing like an old family. "You know," Ethan said, looking around, "this doesn't feel like a hotel room anymore. It feels like home." Lila smiled softly. "Home is anywhere Maya feels safe." "And you?" he asked gently. She looked down. "I'm getting there." That night, as Ethan left, he paused at the door. "You deserve more than just getting there, Lila. Don't stop believing in yourself." When he was gone, she stood by the window for a long time, the city lights twinkling outside, and whispered, "Maybe I won't." Months slipped by, and life bloomed again. With hard work and determination, Lila saved enough for a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was hers. Maya Designs, a name that began as a joke between her and Ethan, became her dream. Ethan, a quiet but consistent supporter, helped her with paperwork and business advice. One evening, she walked into a small empty storefront downtown. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the bare floor. Ethan stood beside her. "What do you think?" She blinked in disbelief. "It's beautiful. But I can't afford something like this." "Not yet," he said, smiling. "But maybe you and I can make it happen, together." Tears glistened in her eyes. "Ethan, you've done enough. You don't need to." He stepped closer, his voice low. "I want to. You helped me remember what matters. This isn't charity, Lila. It's faith." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then let's build it." 6 months later, the sign went up, Maya Designs, where hope becomes art. The grand opening was small but magical. Friends, customers, and neighbors filled the space. Ethan stood quietly in the corner, watching Lila greet her first customers. Her laughter filled the room, the sound of a woman who'd survived and started to thrive. At the end of the day, she walked over to him. "You made this possible." He shook his head. "No, Lila. You did. I just reminded you that you could." Their eyes met for a long, silent moment, and both knew the truth neither had said aloud yet. A year later, on a rainy evening that mirrored the night they first met, Ethan invited Lila and Maya back to the same cafe. The lights were soft, the air smelled of coffee and memory. On the table sat a small music box shaped like a tiny home. Lila smiled curiously. "What's this?" Ethan nodded. "Open it." When she did, the melody filled the air, and inside was a note that read, "You'll never have nowhere to go again." Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled as she looked up, and saw Ethan kneeling before her with a small ring box in his hand. "Lila," he said, voice trembling, "that night you said those words, 'We have nowhere to go,' they broke my heart. But they also woke me up. You and Maya gave my life meaning again. You were the home I didn't know I was missing. Will you marry me?" Lila's tears spilled freely as she whispered, "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Maya squealed, "Mommy said yes," and clapped her hands, her laughter echoing through the cafe. Everyone applauded. Even Rose, the old waitress who'd once handed Lila a free muffin, smiled through tears. As Ethan slid the ring onto her finger, thunder rumbled softly outside, just like that first night, but now it sounded like a song of blessings. Years later, Maya Designs became a symbol of hope in the city. Lila's story inspired countless others, single mothers, lost souls, people who thought kindness had died. And Ethan, now her husband, made sure his company gave back, building programs that helped struggling families find homes and jobs. On rainy nights, they'd sit by the window together, watching the drops slide down the glass. Lila would rest her head on his shoulder and whisper, "Do you remember the night we met?" He'd smile. "I could never forget. You saved me that night, Lila, I just didn't know it yet." And from the other room, Maya's soft laughter would fill their home, a sound that proved love always finds its way, even through the rain. One act of kindness can change everything. You never know whose life, or heart, you're saving when you choose compassion over indifference. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional and life-changing stories every week. Your one click helps spread love, hope, and kindness across the world. Globe showing America's red heart.